Hello.
Back
Hey,
again, two
that's
weeks in a
right.
row.
I know.
Uh,
Maybe next week I'll bow out and you and Marco can just roll.
I thought, okay,
There you go. I'd be all right with that.
If Marco ever comes back, I don't
Oh,
know. Did
yeah.
he? I don't know if
Yeah.
he meant to do this.
I know. The
But
crazy
I think
thing with jobs
jobs
stinks when
they
they get
do
in the
that.
way, doesn't it? Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so we are summer season episode 4, I think.
Yes.
Yes. Had us at
Episode 4.
1 Corinthians 7. Now here's the problem. I'm already thinking toward next week's sermon.
Good.
But it means that numbers might be around 7 through 12 was this week, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
yeah,
if not,
7
text
12.
us at 937-404-1207 and correct us
Yeah.
or ask questions. Yep.
Ask questions. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
good. We haven't gotten any fear a few times. I'm going to turn this just a little bit because
Yeah,
I feel
go ahead.
like you want a lot of attention, but there we go.
That looks good. Yeah.
So yeah,
So
man.
yeah, we didn't get any questions in, but we thought about this might not be a long one either, but we'll just kind of talk around. I did get some feedback from some people that so one of the cool things for me
Mhm.
is like, okay, you read your Bible and you study. There's just, this, like there's a deeper study when you're going to teach.
Yep.
And so I was familiar with Romans. I'm familiar with Romans 7, familiar with this passage, and then digging into it was like, oh man, I think in the past I'd always thought, okay, Paul's saying, if it wasn't for the law, I wouldn't have known what sin is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known what coveting is. And it's like he just picked one.
Yeah.
And maybe, okay, like I even shared in the sermon, he's not gonna pick murder because it's like, dude, you knew what murder is.
Yeah.
But like he picked one and there wasn't, and actually a couple conversations I've had with people, there's a brilliance to Paul picking coveting because it just so totally gets to like the soul level.
Yeah.
So much of your exterior actions can look good while it's just chewing you up on the inside.
Yeah.
You're filled with envy and jealousy. And then sometimes it drives actions that we're appalled by, but you find, okay, in the sense it was almost premeditated because it goes back to feelings of jealousy or envy. So I think one of the tricky things with those situations when it's all internal like that is discerning.
Which is,
Yeah. Like, so what, I didn't even tell you I was going to ask you questions. So we're putting you on the spot.
Great. We might have to.
I mean, what are some of those things? What are some of those things you can think of that could easily be confused with envy, that can complicate it? Like as we try and think through, because it's not the opposite of envy is not just like complacency.
Yeah,
we're still supposed to be people that have passions and desires, right? So,
I think one. I mean, this might hit home for both of us. Is like when you go to a restaurant and you sit down and you order your food and you really look forward to your food, and then someone walks out to deliver someone else's food, and you're like, now that looks good. And so you start to think, I wish I had that instead. You see where I'm going? Yeah. I don't think necessarily that would be. I don't think that would be crossing the line of saying, wow, that looks really good, but to the point of sneaking over to their table and taking a bite would probably be a little bit too far. I know car situations. So Amanda got in a wreck, like a year and a half ago, and so she had to get a new car, and I was still
just
driving.
to keep you out of trouble. Amanda's car was wrecked.
Yeah,
she was totally in the. She literally was too.
Yeah, she did.
She got hit.
Yeah, she got hit.
She's a good driver. I just want to put that on the record.
She's a good driver. And so I feel like you tried setting me up for that one.
I don't know. Did anybody else see him go? I don't know. What did the scratch of the ear mean? While you said she's been having an itch back here the entire time we're in here. I'm just kidding. Amanda is a good driver.
She is a good driver. And yeah, at that, she got a new car, and I was still driving my Ford Escape. And when she got it, I just wanted a new car. My Escape was fine, but I was still wanting something else. And I think that even got in my way of how I responded to Amanda getting a new car. Like I was very withdrawn from it because it's like, why do you get a new car? Maybe I should go out and follow the law and get hit somehow. But yeah, those are.
Is that why you drive past our church multiple times every morning?
Yeah,
you're just hoping somebody will.
Well, I drive really fast up into the turn.
There you go.
There you go. Break it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are
Yeah.
It's hard to, you said that, it's kind of hard to decipher what that line is. I know with children, for instance, Paxton and Cohen, if Cohen has a toy and Paxton wants it,
Oh my.
it's
Yeah.
a nightmare.
Yeah. You see it early.
Yeah. And so
What's attractive about the toy is that the
It's
other
the-
person is
yeah.
playing with it.
Yeah,
We
it's
even
not
see that in our dog.
really.
Like she'll not be interested in a toy, and then some other dog comes and grabs that toy, and suddenly
It's like
she's got to have that toy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the fallen nature
Yeah.
of man.
Yeah.
Wanting
Permeating
something
to puppies.
because
Yeah.
someone else has it.
Yeah, I
So,
think so.
yeah.
I sole protection for everybody in the room, like chose a vehicle none of us are shopping for.
A
Like,
Bronco?
no, in the sermon,
Just
yeah, dude, now I'm dealing with
sorry,
that.
I didn't mean
No,
that.
but like because like there's legitimately super cool cars that I think that some people in our church have.
No.
And I didn't want any of them to feel like I wasn't going to put their picture up there of their car and
Yeah.
have them feel weird.
Yeah.
Because then you have that moment of like, oh, I just thought I was driving a car. I didn't realize it was. Also didn't want to basically in that sense confess like, yeah, if my soul's not in the right place, I kind of get ticked when I see you roll in, or something. Because not really, I mean, one of the things that helps, I think, is even the knowledge of knowing the person well or something like that could play into it, or that could make it harder too. That it's like, yeah, that was kind of a protective thing to pick a $1 million vehicle that, okay, those are cool, but that's about it. And had multiple people on the way out the door go, I don't know what you saw in that vehicle. It didn't do anything for me.
I'm not a big car guy.
Yeah.
But I will say it was a cool car. I just wish they made like extra large.
Yeah,
versions.
they don't fit you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't get into small cars like that.
Yeah.
Poor like Pete.
It's actually fairly large. I wonder what a large guy would look like getting in that, because it's not a tiny vehicle.
Is it?
No,
Is it
and
just
it's a two-seater, so it's very low.
Yeah, that's
you kind of would swim your way out of it.
It's a long way down.
Yeah. So I'm with you on like, I think there's so like the restaurant thing you even mentioned, that can be like, oh, I legitimately saw something someone else had and thought that would be nice.
Yeah.
And want it too. And I think maybe that's part of the indication of like, because that can motivate us. That can create oh, hey, that's a cool car, and here's the practical features, and it's got a third row seating for another set of kids, or all of those things that come. And you go, wow, yeah, that would be helpful. I'm going to start saving up money for that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right. I think one of the indications that maybe you're crossing a line is if it's like, oh, I deserve that, especially if it's at the expense of the person that got it.
Yeah.
Like I should be allowed to, I deserve that more than they do. So therefore it's not right. They have it. I should have it.
No.
Whereas like, maybe it's a little healthier. If it's okay, you have something nice, and that makes me realize that would be beneficial. I'd like to have something nice too, but I'm thrilled for you that you have it. And I think that's the thing for me, like with the way cars work for me, is I can see somebody has a nice car, see somebody got a brand new car, see somebody got a fun car, and be like, well, cool, good for them. I know my soul is getting unhealthy, and I'll then look and be like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
That's not fair is probably an indication when I'm saying that it's a problem. Or like, seriously, they already have a cool car. Why do they need two cool cars?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things even that was funny was one time somebody walking out the church was like, you always joke about Broncos, which I thought I gave our church a break this week.
Yeah,
and they're like, but don't you drive a Bronco? And it's like, yeah. And there's two sides to it. It's like, one is like, yeah, it's an 89 Bronco too.
Which real Bronco owners apparently do.
There's a lot of discrimination against us Bronco 2 people, even though I would argue, do we have time on the podcast for this? I would argue the Bronco 2 is more like the original Bronco and the new Bronco than the OJ Big Broncos. I think the OJ Big Broncos are the outlier, but yes, we're the ones that get mocked. So I'm the redheaded stepchild of the Broncos. It's painful, and I've got a phone call in with a therapist, but there's two sides with what they're asking. One is like, okay, like, yes, but have you seen the new ones? Like super cool. The second side of it is like, I thoroughly enjoy that car. And I get that like most people probably don't. Yeah. And are like, why is he driving this antiquated, weird old thing? I think it's fun to drive. And I think it does serve as a good reminder then of where I can get caught up of like, okay, It doesn't have removable doors and a removable top. It doesn't have the trail feature where the back left hub will lock so that you can make a tighter turn in the corners. It doesn't have the ability to store the doors once you took them off. It doesn't have turbo or a 7-speed automatic transmission. I mean, I could go on about the new Broncos and what they have. That it doesn't have those things. So I think there is legitimacy of looking and going, well, a newer one would have features this one doesn't. It's a fail though if I'm not looking at going like, but I get up every morning and hit the key and I'm pretty confident I'm going to get here. And I enjoy the drive to get here. So like I need to not get so consumed with what it's not
and what it is
that I don't enjoy what it is. And I think, man, that can go into everything, right? Like that can go into the youth group or the church where you look and it comes out and you've done it. I've done it. You know, I'll come in on a Thursday and like, hey, how was yesterday? And it's like, well, there'll be sports activities, the fair, you know, there's tons of things going on. You're like, well, so-and-so wasn't there. So-and-so wasn't there. And it's like, yeah. And that's healthy. Like I want to minister and serve people. There's also a side of it though, of like, we have to counter and go, but who was, and what did we have? And I think, that's a big key component of it that the law brings out to us is like, it's messy to go like, okay, I'm not going to be complacent about where I am right now. I mean, man, we can be jealous about people's spiritual walk. We can be jealous about their knowledge of the Bible,
everything.
Like, everything. And so even to see that and desire it is a healthy desire. I mean, who doesn't want to grow spiritually? That's never going to get condemned. But sometimes that jealousy works in such a way we don't even recognize what we have already. You know, and don't appreciate that. So
you mentioned something in your sermon towards the end. I think it was it Martin Lloyd Jones? Was it 9 things that he said?
Yeah, you're not going to ask me to remember that.
No, I'm not going to ask you to remember all of them. What was the third one? I'm just joking. There were a couple of things that he said though that I think is so true, even in the midst of like even coveting. Like I think they're even like we have to be on guard for that from the get-go. Just because it opens up that world of like, you know, you kind of were just mentioning that, like it can open up to that world of sin, but it's also one of the things, I can't remember exactly the way that it was worded, but it was like, you're already almost there, you've already committed the sin, so why not just keep going further onto it? So how do you think would be the best way to guard that? Like how do you think would be the best way to guard someone who is like, all right, I do struggle with looking at someone else's possessions and desiring to have those because why do they have them and I don't? How would you go about counseling someone in that sort of way?
Yeah, I love that list. And I with you, so much of it resonated. And even like, I think one of the it's almost like screw tape letters of like the devil uses completely opposite approaches depending on the situation. I wouldn't even say depending on the purpose, because sometimes even at the same time I feel like I'm hearing both lies, even though they wouldn't work together. So it's like one can be like, oh, that righteousness is too unattainable. The other side is like, you're already righteous, right? And it kind of works in that way. I think it's the same thing as that the first step is recognizing it's deception. And so if we know we're not to be jealous, and yet we find ourselves starting to think toward it, and we're trying to like, and we find ourselves in some sort of way justifying it. I'm already wanting it, so why don't I just go ahead and do this, or whatever it might be, or start despising the other person, because you can't remain jealous about something somebody has without becoming jealous about the person, which then creates conflict, right? Is that in that moment when I start to try and justify my conflict I feel toward another person, I gotta stop and go, wait, this is deception. And what knowing that something is deception should cause us then, okay, what's the truth I need to seek? What's the honest answer I need to give? And it's beyond just don't be jealous. Right. It can be things like, well, what do you already have that you should be thankful for? Do you know the full story? I remember church I grew up in, the youth pastor got married, moved, he'd like interned for us, went back to college, got married, and moved to be with us. And the conversation the next year was like, maybe we're paying our youth pastor too much because do you see the car that his wife drives? And it was a weird conversation because what you find out is when they got married, her parents said, here, you've been driving this car anyway, take it. So the reason they had a nice car was not because we were paying him too much. That was the only time anyone in the church thought that was the case.
Yeah.
The reason they had a nice car was somebody gave them a gift of something.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's like begins to be the key on any of those 9 is, and here's why, because you shouldn't have to look too hard, because every deception has in it the element of truth, right? So like, well, I'm already falling short and sinning in this, why not continue in sin? Well, the truth of the matter is, you're right, you have already fallen in this, and you have a redeemer who's forgiving you and setting you free from it. So that's why you don't just go ahead and continue in it. So I think that's probably where I try and take somebody is like, okay, let's find what is true according to God's word, and how can we start applying it there.
I've noticed that. And I mean, a lot of the letters in the New Testament, where it's like there's a lot of stuff going on in the churches, but never do they start off pointing us to there's the problem, let's fix the problem, but they actually point us to what we already know to be true with the gospel and who Christ is. And then that's how they address even like attacking sin. It's like, first, do you not know who Christ is and what he came to do? So that's, I just thought that was cool. What book was that off of?
That was Martin Lloyd-Jones's commentary
okay.
of Romans.
Okay.
So,
Okay. That was curious.
So
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or anything that you didn't really quite get to?
No, other than it was just one of those fun weeks, that early in the week I was like, oh man, there's some statements he make, and I'm in the middle of it for this week. I'm like, man, there's some statements that Paul's making. He's Paul, and he's also wrestling. I don't know where we're going to go with this. And then by the time Sunday comes, the Lord's gracious. And so that I don't know. That's kind of a fun process. In a way. So.
I was talking to my brother today about even my lesson for this week, and I was like, I read the text, I know what the text is saying. You kind of mentioned that before, like at the very beginning, and then it's a lot different when you teach the text. Because you're looking at it completely different than what you would have if you just read it. So it's a fun process, but the gospel was shared, and I think didn't look like you were nervous up there. I think I came up to you, I was like, what were you stressing out about?
Martin Luther said you beat your head against the text like until it yields, and by it yields, it doesn't mean it yields to our will and what we want, but it's kind of like, and then the text finally just kind of opens up and says, okay, here's what's going on. So some of us have thicker heads than others, so I have to beat my head a little bit longer. So
I would be up there.
So
good.
All right. Well, that's kind of it. Like I say, we didn't have many questions. So we're just kind of riffing. I will say this, just as a note of encouragement, it's probably very obvious, and I didn't even need to say it, but we don't do any prep for the podcast. So the conversation you just heard could have been just as much over $1.50 tacos earlier today. Which just makes me thankful for the guy on staff, the guys on the elder team, being able to serve together with you guys of like, we don't have to do prep to have conversations around the word and what the Lord's doing. So thankful for you.
I'm thankful for being a part of this, and thankful I get to learn from you. So,
well, in that sense, we know that, here we go. Let's see how much you've learned, or Padawan. That in Christ, all the work has been done.
Now we're just driving home.
Okay, you still added a now.
Why? Is it the now?